I was never comfortable talking about other players. Never. That wasn't false modesty. That wasn't strategy. That was just who I am. Tennis for me was always about what happened between the lines. You showed up, you competed, you went home. You didn't need to explain yourself, and you didn't need to explain anyone else either. But respect, that's different. Respect isn't about talking. Respect is something that builds quietly over years of competition. Over matches where you walked off the court knowing the guy on the other side of the net had taken something from you that you weren't planning to give. At 54, looking back at everything, 14 Grand Slams, a decade at the top, all of it, 5 names stand out. 5 players who earned something from me that I didn't hand out easily. This isn't a ranking. This isn't a celebration. Nah, this is just the truth about 5 men who made me understand this game more deeply than I ever expected. Rod Laver. I never played Rod Laver. By the time I came on tour, he was already history. But Rod Laver was the reason I understood what the ceiling actually looked like before I ever competed professionally. My father introduced me to Laver early, and what struck me immediately wasn't any single shot or any single result. It was the completeness. No weakness you could find, no surface that gave him problems, no opponent who consistently had answers. He just solved everything in front of him and moved on to the next problem. That kind of total game, in any era, is extraordinary. 2 calendar Grand Slams. The second one after being locked out of the majors for years because of professional status. He came back and dominated all over again like the time away had meant nothing. I thought about that often during my own career. When I was injured, when things weren't going right, when people were writing me off, I reminded myself that Rod Laver had faced harder walls and walked straight through them. What I respected most was the absence of noise around him. No drama, no controversy, just tennis and results, and a quiet understanding of his own place in the game. I tried to carry myself the same way. Win, shake hands, go home. Let the record speak. Rod Laver taught me that standard was possible before I ever stepped on a professional court. Everything I built afterwards, I measured against that standard. Stefan Edberg. Stefan Edberg was my childhood idol. I'll say that plainly because it's true, and there's no point pretending otherwise. When I was a kid in California watching tennis and trying to figure out who I wanted to become as a player, it was Stefan. The serve and volley game, the movement at the net, the backhand that landed exactly where he intended every single time. I watched him and thought, that's the game. That's how it should be played. When I actually came on tour and started competing against him, that respect deepened in ways I hadn't expected. Because watching someone is one thing. Standing across the net from them is completely different. Stefan's net game in person was something else entirely. The anticipation, the positioning, the touch on volleys that should have been impossible to reach. He made it look routine because he had done the work to make it routine. And nothing was accidental with Stefan. Every movement had a purpose. 1992, U.S. Open Final. He beats me in 5 sets. I'm 21 years old. I'm playing some of the best tennis of my life, and he beats me in 5 sets on a hard court. I walked off that court frustrated, genuinely frustrated. But underneath the frustration, there was something else. Admiration. He had competed at an extraordinary level for 5 sets against someone who desperately wanted that title. He didn't flinch. He didn't have a moment where the pressure got to him. He just played his game and trusted it completely. That match shaped me. It showed me what it looked like to compete without doubt. Stefan Edberg never looked like he doubted himself on a tennis court, not once. That image stayed with me for the rest of my career. Andre Agassi. Andre is complicated. I'll be honest about that. Our relationship on court was never warm. We were too different, too competitive, too aware of each other to ever be comfortable. But respect, genuine respect, that was always there underneath everything else. What I respected about Andre was his reinvention. The early Andre, the image, the hair, the attitude, that wasn't the player who actually scared me. The later Andre, the one who shaved his head and got serious and decided to actually figure out who he was as a tennis player. That Andre was genuinely dangerous. That Andre was one of the best returners I ever faced in my life. His return of serve was the one thing that consistently disrupted my game. My serve was my weapon. My serve was how I controlled matches, how I got free points, how I set up everything else. Andre took that away. He stood closer to the baseline than anyone else. He read the ball early, and he redirected it back with interest. There were matches where I was serving well, genuinely well, and he was still getting it back. That doesn't happen often. That requires extraordinary skill and even more extraordinary courage. 1995 U.S. Open Final. I beat him 6-4, 6-3, 4-6, 7-5. One of the cleaner performances of my career in a Grand Slam final. But Andre made me work for every single point in that fourth set. He refused to go away. He found another level when most players would have accepted the result. That stubbornness, that refusal, I respected it even while I was trying to end the match as quickly as possible. We pushed each other for over a decade. The rivalry made both of us better. I know that, and I think he knows it too. Ivan Lendl. Now, Ivan Lendl retired before our rivalry could fully develop. Our overlap was limited. But what I observed of Ivan during those years and what I studied of his career afterwards left a deep impression on me. What Ivan did was decide. He decided what kind of player he wanted to be, and then he built that player systematically. The fitness was legendary. Nobody trained harder. Nobody was in better physical condition. The baseline game was constructed with precision. Heavy topspin, deep balls, taking away time, turning every rally into a physical test that opponents eventually failed. He didn't rely on inspiration or natural gifts alone. He engineered excellence, and then he maintained that excellence year after year after year. 8 Grand Slams, world number 1 for years. He dominated an era with McEnroe and Connors and Weilander, all genuine champions, and he did it through sheer disciplined commitment to his own standard. That's not talent alone. That's something harder than talent. That's the daily decision to be excellent when nobody is watching and nothing is forcing you. I related to that. My preparation was always serious, always deliberate. I understood the value of routine, of discipline, of trusting your process when the pressure is highest. Ivan Lendl understood those things before most players in his generation did. He raised the standard for what professional preparation looked like. Every serious player who came after him, including me, benefited from that, whether we acknowledged it or not. Roger Federer. This one is different. Roger came after me. He's the one who surpassed my Grand Slam record. He's the one who made 14 look like a stepping stone. And I'll tell you something honestly. Watching him do it was not always easy. But my respect for what he did is absolute and genuine. Roger Federer played tennis the way I always believed tennis should be played. Efficient, purposeful, beautiful in its precision rather than its power. When I watched him, really watched him, I saw decisions being made at a speed and quality that I recognized from my own best tennis, but executed more consistently than I ever managed. The forehand, the serve, the movement, the shot selection under pressure, everything held together, even when everything was on the line. What struck me most was how long he held that level. Grand Slam finals at 35, 36, 37 years old, playing 5-set matches at the highest intensity against opponents 20 years younger. That requires not just physical conditioning, but a mental clarity that most players lose long before that age. Roger never lost it. He refined it. He got better at the important things, even as the athletic gifts naturally diminished. 20 Grand Slams. He earned every single one. He didn't get them because the competition was weak, or because the draw was kind, or because he got lucky at the right moments. He got them because he was better, consistently, repeatedly, undeniably better, over an extraordinary length of time. I don't find it painful to say that anymore. At 54, I can say it clearly. Roger Federer was the greatest tennis player who ever lived, and I have complete respect for what he built. 5 players, 5 completely different stories, but one thing connects all of them. They all understood what this game actually demands. Not just the physical part, not just the talent, the daily commitment to excellence when nobody is watching, the ability to perform when everything is on the line, the courage to compete as yourself completely, no excuses, no shortcuts, no hiding. That's what tennis asks of you at the highest level. These 5 men answered that question better than almost anyone who ever picked up a racket. I watched them. I competed against some of them. I measured myself against all of them. And I'm grateful for every one of those matches.